Like this. Fill up their truck.
The February 11, 2025 Forest Grove School District Board of Directors meeting is called to order at 5:31 p.m. We'll start with a roll call of board members present. Val? Here. Brad?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kate? Yes. I am here, and Paula is currently not here. She may be coming in a little bit. She will be absent tonight. All right. We could all rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Looking for approval of tonight's agenda. All second. All in favor? Aye. And no student representative report, so we'll start with the board report. Anything from the board tonight? I can't think of anything. Okay, I was going to ask if you had.
I'm on the Recreation Commission. We're in the process right now looking at fees for space. So we're having those discussions around youth sports and how it works, how it's going to work in the future. So probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll be making a recommendation to the council. So that's kind of where we are right now with that. People are not very happy. So by the time we get done with it all, everybody will be happy. Almost.
Yeah, good luck.
Almost.
Okay.
All right.
Were you going to mention the fundraiser tonight at all or no? Okay. There's a fundraiser happening tonight that the mayor is participating in. It's in downtown Forest Grove, but I just wanted to mention that, and our chief of police was the guest at one of the previous fundraisers that this establishment had, and they get to choose where half of the funds go, and so her choice is to unified sports. Yeah. So I just wanted to give that a shout out. So
yeah, hopefully they raise lots of money, and specifically more money than the chief raise is the goal.
Yeah, not that it's a
because it's never a competition, but it's always a competition.
Right. So I do have a few things I'd like to say. I wanted to start by highlighting a couple of local events that honor Black History Month. My good friend, a direct descendant of Carter G. Woodson, described this month as a time to focus on the collective strength, resilience, pride, contributions, and culture. Through her, I learned that Carter G. Woodson was a scholar whose dedication to celebrating the historic contributions of Black people led to the establishment of Black History Month, marked every February since 1976. We have so many opportunities in our schools and in our community to learn about Black history, which is American history. One of those currently is in downtown Portland. You may have seen it on KGW News, the free pop-up museum. And I was able to visit this weekend with my dad, and it does a wonderful job of highlighting stories of Black Americans in Oregon. But locally, I wanted to highlight a discussion that was hosted by the Forest Grove Library in 2021, and it's up on the screen. If you don't know, our Forest Grove Library has a local treasure in Bob Abbey. He is the adult services librarian. And Bob brought author and assistant professor at Portland State University, Walida Imrisha, in for a discussion about Black history in Oregon. It's a talk that's been viewed over 78,000 times, and it's available on the Forest Grove Library's YouTube channel, along with all of the other adult programming that they do at the library, which is phenomenal. I think I learned more about Black history in this talk than I did in my entire 16 years of schooling. Our library and all public libraries do an outstanding job of highlighting and curating a diverse collection of opportunities to learn. And finally, I was inspired by the words of Alicia Keys last week as she accepted the Dr. Dre Impact Award at the Grammys. She spoke about the value that every single person brings to the world and mentioned one impactful line that resonated with me. She said, "DEI is not a threat, it's a gift." I'm so proud that our Forest Grove community and district and city council celebrates and embraces the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I just wanted to highlight a couple things, what I think we think DEI really looks like, to make sure we aren't allowing it to be redefined. In our community, DEI looks like our police department attending microaggression and bias awareness training designed by our very own police chief, Henry Wyman. It is the Parks and Rec department, actually Brad, reviewing policy for fees so that everyone can access services. DEI is a local parent group volunteering their time so that girls who aren't in club sports still have access to play softball. It is our Public Works department making sure our sidewalks are ADA accessible. It is a thoughtful mural in Forest Glen Park painted by students and commissioned by the City Council that welcomes everyone. But in our schools, DEI looks like teachers providing reading instruction with materials that students see themselves represented in. It is the space for clubs at the high school like FFA, Unified Sports, LIA, Juntos, Period Club, and the Gay Straight Alliance, and so many more, so that all students have a place they belong and can thrive. It looks like students, like my son, with disabilities playing sports and acting on stage alongside their peers. It is ensuring our policies prevent discriminatory practices so that our school communities and kids feel safe. Our schools are places where everyone is not only valued but celebrated. And it's also recognizing that in a town where the majority of residents are people of color, we need to improve representation on our school board and on our council. And let me remind you that school board elections are coming up, and if anyone needs information about that, I think we posted information on how to submit applications, and happy to talk more about that with anybody. And finally, town halls. I did attend the town hall with Senator Solomon and Rhett McLean and Nathan Sosa a week and a half ago, I think, in Hillsborough, and there were several people from Forest Grove that came, but it was a pretty full room, and the majority of the questions and concerns were really about schools and students in our community feeling safe. There were also conversations about policy, and it was really well attended, but it was kind of nice to get a feel for where people are, with how they're thinking about what's going on in the world and what we can do to work together to make sure that we're still moving forward. The upcoming ones I wanted to highlight, Janine Solomon does so many town halls. She's so available. She's in Forest Grove quite a bit. She is at BJ's, she's at Starbucks, she's virtual. Tomorrow night is a virtual town hall. You do have to register and they'll send a link, but it's a great chance to ask. She does take questions and just hear about what's going on, share your concerns. And then Saturday at Pointer Middle School, Senator Wyden is going to be there at noon. And then we just received, and Bethany actually was at 5:23. I sent her the email we just received from Representative Bonamici, and she managed to plug it into the slide, so she's awesome. That town hall was just announced. It's going to be Monday at 6 p.m. at Century. And if you've never been to a town hall, especially Ron Wyden's town halls, pretty much it's just a Q&A. He does a little on the top talking, and then he lets the audience just ask their questions. And it was really well attended. The last one, I think, was at Forest Grove High School. So anyway, I'm gonna pass it over at this point. There's plenty of legislative stuff to talk about, but I know that Dr. West is gonna be speaking to some of that, so I'll stop with that. I'll stop there.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Chair. I have several things to share tonight. I'm going to start by pinch hitting for our student advisor who normally shares a lot that's going on at the high school. We have girls and boys basketball away games at Liberty and Glencoe tonight, as well as on Friday, so if you're a basketball fan, worth going to see. We also have on the 14th and 15th the Pacific Conference District for girls and boys swim team. That's being held in McMinnville, so they're doing quite well this year. The 14th and 15th of February, NAMS has their annual music shut-in. This is a ton of fun. They'll be performing at 11 a.m. on the 15th and demonstrating what they learned through that overnight experience. Quick reminder for those of us who either work in the district or have students in the district, Monday is a holiday. Please don't come to work. Please don't send your students to school. The 20th of February, we have another mariachi concert. If you have not seen the mariachi band perform, it is worth your time. They are outstanding. And then on the 21st of February through the 2nd of March, there are several performances from Forest Grove High School Theater. They are presenting H.G. Wells's The Island of Dr. Moreau. So if you go to the website, you can find the exact dates and times, and you can buy tickets in advance. And then the last date that I want to share, which is near and dear to my heart, is that on the 6th of March, we will be hosting a Belonging Summit at Neil Armstrong Middle School, and that will be in the evening. There will be details sent out here very soon to the entire community, Forest Grove School District community. The Belonging Summit is open to families who want to learn more about pro-social behaviors they can support their students with, how to help their students remain safe online, what to look for in their students' online or phone behavior that parents may want to lean into, what to look for to ensure that they're having the conversations and interrupting behaviors that may lead to unhealthy habits like vaping or alcohol drinking or drug abuse. So it'll be an outstanding event, and it's really important to have these conversations within our community, so hope to see you there. And now I'm going to move on to a couple of other things. I feel like I need to once again address the executive orders that have come down since we last met. The most recent ones were specific about transgender students and how transgender students are treated in school environments. I want to be clear that in Forest Grove School District, we have 3 values that we live by. We care deeply, we stand strong, we adapt and grow. For us, these are not just words on a poster, these are our compass points. Every student matters. And every student deserves an education in our school system. And in order to fulfill that awesome responsibility that we have towards children, when they walk through our door, we accept them as they are, we meet them as they are, we do not judge, we educate. And that's what we will continue to do. The most recent executive orders create a conflict with the state of Oregon because in Oregon, gender identity is a protected class. So there are lawyers, people much smarter than me, who will work that out over the coming months and maybe even years. But all of that takes place at a state and national level. Locally, we take care of the kids that come to us. So I wanted to be clear about that before moving on to more local information here. As I have been doing since the beginning of the year, I've been bringing a monthly enrollment report into the boardroom. This is February's. And you can see that for February, we've had a little bit of shift since the last time I put this up. The last time we were at 129 students, so we're just a few students off from that this time. But it still is not where we want to be in terms of our enrollment compared to our projected student count. So if this continues, which it seems like it likely will through the end of the year, this almost certainly will impact our finances for the upcoming budget season as well as the biennium. We will have to make reductions to account for this loss in enrollment. And then you can see right there the impact per school as well. High school is experiencing the most significant decline in enrollment compared to our forecast, which would be expected given that they have the largest student body in the district. Moving on from there, one of the things I committed to do this year, once the legislative session started, is to bring you some updates. So our legislative priorities included the state school fund, high cost disability and special education funding cap, as well as ECSC services, and then just the adequacy in general of the funding that we need to support students. We also had on there some information about unfunded mandates, and I'll get to that in just a few minutes. There are several House and Senate bills up there that are worth noting. All of these are in process. For those of you who are not familiar with the legislative process, you'll see, for example, at the special education funding cap, there's actually 3 different House bills listed there. Bills have sponsors when they are originally introduced, and sponsors can write their own bill or select a bill that an advocacy group, for example, would like to see advanced. If these bills proceed through the legislative process at some point, there will be a directive to combine these bills into one, to reconcile them, and then there will be just one bill that advances for an eventual floor vote, but we're not quite there yet. Right now, all of these bills are in the Ways and Means Committee, so they're in the process of being evaluated for financial impact. The Ways and Means Committee are asking questions about the bills, trying to inform themselves about which of these will move forward and which won't. Are there any questions about these bills before I move on? Okay. Next up, in reference to the Ways and Means Committee, in the Ways and Means Committee, there's a ton of work that's actually done. The Ways and Means Committee evaluates just about every bill that hits the Senate and the House. There are subcommittees that look at specific bills. The ones that we, of course, care most about are the Education Subcommittee for the Ways and Means Committee. Our own Senator Solomon is a co-chair for that committee, which is nice because we have a pretty direct conduit to somebody who cares deeply about schools and who listens to us when we call. There was a recent Ways and Means Committee meeting in which Edunomics, which is a division of Georgetown University, made a presentation regarding Oregon state school funding and Oregon state school outcomes, and made a relationship, a correlation between those two things. The gist of the presentation, I'm oversimplifying this, the gist of the presentation was that we're spending more money than we ever have and outcomes are lower than they've ever been. That has led to several press releases like the one that you see here. This is from the Republican caucus. And in so many words, the Republican caucus raises questions about whether or not the monies that are being spent for schools are effective. Many news media picked that up, and there's been quite a kerfuffle over the last week and a half or so related to this conversation. What I hope to do here in the next few minutes is orient us to a few things, because I think this is an important conversation for us in terms of how schools are funded and what outcomes mean in relationship to the effectiveness of schools. If you're interested, you can snap those QR codes that will take you to the 2 Ways and Means Committee that we're referencing. Last week I shared this slide. This is a history of the state school fund going back a decade, so the 23-2015 biennium. And you can see there that the state school fund, in terms of just dollar value, has increased each biennium since 2013-2015. As we pointed out last time, the biennium right there in the midst of the pandemic, the increase was pretty small. And that 3.3% increase did not account for the increase in costs that we were all seeing. We were able to weather that because we had federal funds, ESSER funds, that helped us get through that. But in terms of state school funding, we are still in a recovery state from that 3.3% increase because we haven't caught up yet. If you look at the state school fund another way, you can see that since the 2003-2005 biennium, the amount of monies dedicated to the state school fund relative to the state general fund has continued to decrease. If we were today still receiving 45% of the state general fund, schools would be receiving $15.8 billion. And what is being proposed right now is 11.36 billion. So that's quite a difference. Now, as I said last time, there are some people who look at this and say, this is great, we're spending money on other things. But there has been an impact to schools in terms of the resources that we've received over the last decade or so. This is the graph that has caused the kerfuffle. It's a complex graph, there's a lot of lines on there, so I want to spend just a minute talking about what we're looking at. The green line is the expenditure per pupil. It's a cumulative change since 2013, you can see that there, and it's accurate. The expenditures per pupil have increased since 2013, so there's no dispute in the fact that expenditures per pupil continue to go up. The dotted black line is the inflation line for that same period of time. And I'll get to that inflation measure in just a minute here. But that was one of the lines that was used to draw a contrast between the increase in state school fund and how it may be out of proportion compared to increases in costs in the state and the nation. And then all of the other lines show us academic performance relative to different student groups. And that academic performance was measured based on Oregon test scores. So a couple things I want to point out about this graph. Again, I don't dispute any of the numbers. I think they're accurate. I think where the conversation needs to take place is how we interpret this graph. For example, the inflation line. Inflation never includes measurements such as increase in wages. So as we're looking at that line, it doesn't account for the 13, 14, 15% increases that we've seen in wages over the last handful of years, year over year. The expenditure per pupil does not parse out how much of that never makes it to the classroom. For example, it doesn't account for how much of that is funding the increase in PERS. It doesn't account for that, how much of that is being utilized for paid leave Oregon, which is a benefit over the last handful of years that everyone in the state has had access to. It doesn't account, for example, all of the unfunded mandates that we've had conversations about in the last several months. The $1 million that we're going to need to spend to change out all of our lights so that they're LED. That's not extracted from that expenditure per pupil line. And I'm bringing this up because while that number is entirely accurate, it doesn't accurately reflect how much of that is actually an investment in direct instruction to children. And I think that matters when we talk about outcomes. So let me pause there before I go any further. Any questions about this graph? Okay. The other thing I want to point out before I move on here is the test score metric itself. It is my professional opinion that the system of testing here in Oregon is flawed, and it's time to completely reboot it. I do think that the test score in and of itself for its intended purpose tells us something. I don't think it should be thrown out wholesale, but the way it's currently administered in this state, there are flaws that have to be overcome and remedied before we can go back to using that as a reliable indicator of anything. And I'll give you an example about what informs my opinion. Last year, according to ODE data, across the whole state, only about 88% of our students actually took the assessment. To make any kind of meaningful inference from it, we have to be up at about 95%. For 11th graders, that percentage drops to 70%. So it's nearly impossible to make any reasonable inference from data that don't accurately represent your student body. In addition to that, a student is considered to have participated in the assessment if they complete 5 questions. And I wonder, I don't have the answer to this, but I wonder how many assessment results are included in data like these that are incomplete. Students didn't actually complete the test, but because they completed at least 5 questions, they're considered to have participated. So I have a lot of questions about how these data are used to inform the state conversation around the effectiveness of schools. Again, any questions before I move on to the ways and means conversation?
No, but I just want to add in on the test, it also states at the top that these scores do not affect your grade. So when my husband was going to school, they gave him the test and he read that line and he said, I'm not gonna, I'm just gonna fill in the bubbles. That's how he did it, and I think that's true for lots of people. I mean, he probably drew some nice things with his bubbles, but I don't think his test scores were very good. And also, to reiterate, my kids opted out of taking those tests, and a lot of kids do, so it's not really an accurate assessment of everybody.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just a couple more slides here, and then I'll open it up for discussion. Speaking about unfunded mandates, there's a lot being introduced right now at the state level, new bills, new ideas. Those bills are moving through the legislative process. I've looked at a couple of bills that introduce new content areas. So a required content area, K-12, so this would apply to all students. And what I wonder about, this is an example of an unfunded mandate, what I wonder about is if while those bills are moving through our legislature, if there are conversations that are taking place related to all of these things. The idea of a new bill and a new content area that is exciting and maybe meaningful for us as a state, I think that's an important conversation to have. In addition, we need to think about when we introduce a new content area, at most elementary levels, now we have to shift instructional minutes from other content areas to make room for the new one. Is that literacy? Do we reduce the literacy content area to make room for something like computer science? We have to purchase curriculum, we have to purchase software, we have to purchase hardware. There's training for all staff involved. If this new content area requires a specific license, we have to move full-time equivalent classroom instruction to a new area like computer science, which is the bill that I'm referencing. At the secondary level, we see some of those same shifts in FTE. The impact to curriculum could be that we have to reduce elective offerings in one area to make room for this new offering that moves through the legislature. We don't want to do that. We know that career technical education, for example, yields greater outcomes in graduation than many other programs that students could be involved in, but it's a trade-off. Again, we have to purchase curriculum, software, hardware. We have to train new or existing staff. We have to do a lot of updating to grad requirements, MTSS processing, forecasting, course offerings, master scheduling, etc. And that doesn't even take into account what you see in the blue there, which is a list of the many things that the Department of Education would have to undertake with the implementation of a new course. So I'm using this as an example. I think computer science is great. I love a lot of kids to take computer science courses. But the implications for schools when there is a new content area that is introduced, a new requirement, is pretty broad, and I don't think at the legislative level there's conversations around this kind of impact when they move new legislation through. I've talked before about how important it is to me that we see improved outcomes for students. That is a goal of mine. We know from science that there are just a few things that do that. This is from the Carnegie Foundation. Normally I would put up here a graph from the Institutes of Educational Science, but that's a federal agency that apparently doesn't exist anymore. So I turned to the Carnegie Foundation, and we can see here 6 principles of improvement. We have to make the work problem-specific and user-centered. If we're going to improve outcomes for kids, we have got to take this work into the classroom, and we have to involve educators in the process. We know through decades of research that variation in performance is the core problem to address. There's really good research that shows that the greatest variance in outcomes for students is not between schools, it's between teachers in the same schools. We have to reduce variance. We have to see the entire system that produces the outcomes. Context matters. We cannot improve at scale what we cannot measure. So going back to the previous slide where we were talking about state assessment results, we can't use that to inform improvements. We have to use our local measures to do that. We have to anchor practice improvement in disciplined inquiry. We have these PDSA cycles right now in our schools, Plan, Do, Study, Act. It's built into our PLC process, which is what you see in number 6 there. The greatest learning, the efficacy that we need to move instruction comes from a collective of dedicated, smart professionals working towards the same goal, which is improving outcomes for kids. This is how we improve outcomes for young people in our system, and what I would hope that we can get back to. For any legislators that might be out there watching, I'm appealing to you right now that we get down to this kind of business. And the last thing that I want to leave the board with is that there is a limit to what schools can do. There seems to be no limit to what schools are asked to do. And every time we are asked to do something new, tend to a new grant, implement a new requirement, take care of a new core course area or content area, respond to something that comes to us from the state level, we have to turn our attention from instruction to that new thing. So that's pulling us away from the work that we should be doing. And with that, I will stop and open it up for discussion.
Well, I had a couple of comments. Put this on because I was with it. I listened to the Ways and Means discussion last week, and they were talking about Mississippi and the outcomes in Mississippi, and I was just wondering. I mean, they have been at the bottom, but they are climbing, and I wanted to understand, what kind of mandates was the legislation requiring in Mississippi. And then I was looking at an article that was, it's called the PSDA Special Report, School Districts Mandates, Their Impact on Public Education. So I'm going to read a couple of things. If state policymakers are serious about addressing the needs of our students in reading and math, they need to address the unfunded mandates and fund only the essential mandates that relate to student academic needs. And one of the things that I found just unbelievable, it was related to what's required in the business department, what's required in the maintenance department, what's required in construction, when you build a new school. There are just so many hoops and requirements, and even also bidding. None of those are directly related to what is happening in our classroom, the essentials. Some unfunded mandates and or outdated programs need to be dropped because they are outdated. They do not meet the needs of our students, and they are ineffective. The question I have, who will address this and make the decisions to evaluate and terminate these unfunded mandates? Is it at the state level, or would it be more effective at the local level? It should be noted that the unfunded mandates are imposed on districts, and they impact each school district's budget with little or no input by the school districts. Thus, the school districts are not allowed to direct funds toward instruction, and this creates an undue hardship toward meeting the unique needs of our schools. The size of the school district, the type of student population a district serves, the projects within the school which they're involved in. Right now we have Cornelius Elementary School, and they have all kinds of mandates and requirements that they must abide by. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have rules and regulations and safety measures, but sometimes people have a good idea and then they go overboard. The location of a school district, in Eastern Oregon, Joseph, Cove, on the coast, rural, urban, suburban school districts are just examples of the type of characteristics that influence any particular mandate. The mandates in some cases cause challenges of school districts in terms of financial burden, and in addition require more staff and time, which detrimentally impacts students' needs and academic progress. It should be noted that school funds pay for expenses with these mandates, which comes primarily from local sources, and that would be our property taxes as well as state allocations. The cost for school districts to meet these demands each year, the state's allocation, have greatly failed to keep pace. Thus, as state policymakers add new unfunded mandates, the challenge to school districts to do more with less state funding, the frustration and absolutely the rub felt by local school districts and the taxpayers is very real, because districts are left with limited options to pay for them as local tax increases and/or we have educational cuts. So what happens? Taxpayers and legislators see that the dollar amount given each biennium goes up, and they want naturally accountability. And they do not understand why they should increase the dollar amount. They are justified in questioning our math and reading scores and feel that the districts are not effective and do not realize that the unfunded mandates have made it extremely difficult to make the gains we need, while the legislators do not own that these unfunded mandates are imposing part of the problem. I would like to state that policymakers have very good intentions and wanting what we all want, that the students have a strong academic program. We need to narrow our focus on what is critical and essential. If we have strong readers and strong mathematicians, that should be our #1 priority. I believe that we can add and enhance the students' academic experience with two things: evaluate the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of these mandates, and second, for example, if we really feel coding is essential for all students to learn, then industry and business need to provide the monies for these. So that was my thoughts about these mandates, and a little bit of research and trying to compare each state from Oregon to Mississippi to Pennsylvania to New York. They all have mandates, and it's a huge challenge to try to meet the needs of the kids with all these mandates.
Other comments?
Well, so lately I watched the same Ways and Means hearing, I guess it was, and Edunomics presented on, I think what the superintendent mentioned was a link between money and test results, basically. And so, you know, it's been in the press quite a bit lately. If you read Oregon Live, or all you have to do is open a newspaper and it's in the paper. So I think there's some context that some of the articles miss when you read or you read about this. And so I found something on OPB, and I'm not going to read the whole thing either, but I'm going to read bits and pieces of it. And so, so every 2 years, Americans get a snapshot of the health of the country's schools. Education advocates hope the 2024 scores would show a promising rebound from the COVID-19 pandemic. But the latest results released Wednesday and said show a sobering reality as reading and math skills continue to decline nationwide, not just in Oregon. Right? The nation's report card again shows the country schools continuing to fall short, with the Pacific Northwest largely following suit. In both Oregon and Washington, scores fell on 3 out of 4 tests amid a national downward trend, not just in Oregon. On the NAEP is what it's called, National Assessment of Educational Progress. The NAEP tests are different from state assessments required by the federal government, and they're required by the federal government for accountability purposes. State tests rely on participation from as many students as possible, but their results are difficult to compare across state lines because different states have different tests. NAEP is a common test that assesses the performance of a representative sample of students in every state for the basis of a national comparison. NAEP has 4 exams that are watched most closely: reading and math at the 4th grade level and at the 8th grade level, so those 4 tests. Education advocates had hoped that after rough results in 2022, largely blamed on distance learning and other instructional disruptions, there would be a post-pandemic turnaround, but that's not what the 2024 scores are showing. Reading scores were flat or down across the country, without a single state showing an increase at either the 4th or 8th grade levels. And math scores were less uniformly bad. So in Oregon, of the 4, Oregon's results, all of them declined except one. The biggest drop was in 4th grade reading, which fell 3 points below 2022 levels. Oregon's 4th grade reading scores were 7 points below the national average, continuing a disparity dating back almost 2 decades. So I think that's important because it's not, if you read a paper, it would make you think that it happened overnight. This has been 20 years that these scores have been low. Both reading and math scores for Oregon's 8th graders fell by 2 points. The 8th grade math decrease continues a 5-year trend of Oregon performing below the national average. In reading, the below average trend dates back to the pandemic. And the one bright spot was in the 4th grade math, which rose a point. But the NAEP scores show Oregon's 4th graders remain below the national average, as the assessment has shown for nearly 20 years. And I say that because there's some context to that. It's not as if 5 years ago we were at the national average or above. We have been, unfortunately below the national average for a long time. And so, and the trend there's something about Washington is similar. And this gets to what the Edgeonomics was talking about in their presentation, the stagnant results come despite investments that outpace inflation in many states, including Oregon and Washington. And according to the analysis by Edgeonomics Labs, it shows that Oregon spending has gone up by 80% since 2013, while reading and math scores have continued to go the other way. In Washington, they have spent 110% more, and their scores are declining as well. And so, the Edgeonomics was talking about sort of a return on investment. We're spending this money in education, and where are the test scores going? And I don't know the answer to where the test scores are going. I don't have an answer on that. But I do know that if you look, and I looked at the graph for the NAEP for nationally and for Oregon, and since about 2013 or 2012, our graph has been going down, and so has the nation's graph been going down for those tests. And so I don't know the answer. I don't know why that's going down, even though states are spending more money. I do know that one of the things, having been in schools and been a principal at a couple of different levels, I do know that students take tests seriously to different degrees. Some students try and do their best always. Some students don't try and do their best. And on these tests, I just don't know if we're testing too much. I don't know if they don't see a connection between the test and what it means. I don't know. But I would just say that I don't, all of the talk about what this means has been sort of, to me, sort of blown out of proportion. And that's what I would say. I don't think that we're seeing something that we have, that the spending for the last 10 years has been increased, and that's quite a bit. But speaking about the things, the unfunded mandates and the salaries going up and those kinds of things. So I don't know the answer to that, but I just think there's some context that's often left out when you read a newspaper article or you listen to somebody speak about it. There's more there. There's always more there if you just kind of look at it. So That's my comment.
I think I can build off of your point, Mark, and even yours, Kate, because so I'm on the OSBA board, and that meeting happened, and I've been on phone calls with board members from our region, from the rural caucus, since that meeting, and I think it was a 2 eyebrow raise for me when I got about 5 minutes in, and I right away was like, wait, what's this presentation? My first question was, why this presentation? It actually gets a little bit to your point, Mark, is like, what is the work, what was the outcome by kind of parsing the data versus the money versus the kids? And because I feel like, I think we're hoping there's going to be a broader conversation. But what I really appreciate about the committee, because Susan McLean is on that committee as well, and Suzanne Weber, I mean, it's a bipartisan committee, and that committee, you can tell if you listen to the discussion at the end, they also recognized right away the missing context, and you could tell by the questions they were asking really clear questions about the presentation. My question, and it gets back to Kate's, is I think, and actually, Bethany, would you be able to go back to the slide with the 6 Carnegie? Oh my gosh. Oh, is it Enrique? Do you? Oh, that was magic.
It's magic.
I think what I'm starting to hear, there's a lot of questions of school board members is where does the disconnect happen here? Because schools are pretty clear that we know what we need to not get a test score, but to give kids a really good education. And that number 2 there, I haven't seen it worded like that, the variation in performance. My husband's been teaching a long time, he teaches at Evergreen Middle School. This year, they are going through these coaching cycles. This has not really been effectively done, I think, in the whole time he's been there. Not because it hasn't been attempted, but this is finally, there's a chance for them to do this well. And he and another friend of mine who teach there have been able to watch other teachers teach. It's a PLC model. It's pretty much what you're describing. But to hear them talk about the value of being able to just get that coaching so they can level up to where they know they want to be, that has been, they're like, that's what we need. We don't necessarily need to be looking at more data in the Wednesday morning meeting. We don't need to now incorporate, even if you're giving us curriculum, another thing in my classroom, we just need the time to teach, and we need someone to be able to give us the feedback that we're looking for. And so I think that piece, schools know how to do that. What I'm wondering at the state level is the state's role to really not dictate what schools should be doing and what data we should be looking at, but is the state's role to really clear the way by setting up a larger system so that we can provide what we need. If we're going to grow CTE programs, do we need an expanded seat time? Do we need flexible seat time so high schools can be more flexible with where kids are? Do we need to talk about year-round schools? And my question is, where are those conversations happening? And are these bills being brought forward? That's the wondering I've heard from board members that have asked the same question. Who is setting the vision for the state so that we can, like you said, Mark, kind of rebuild the system or rethink it? And we hear that now, it's what we need to be doing because the world has changed. So those were my questions, and I'm wondering, we don't have the answer there on who is having that conversation, but you heard in the end of the Ways and Means, someone said, this is the first time, they talked for maybe 15 minutes, and he said, this is the first time we've been able to talk this long about anything. And so we know time is limited. Time is limited everywhere. Time is limited tonight, and our people waiting to present are probably like, come on, but this is a huge, that one meeting and that conversation has ricocheted around the state and is kind of all landing back on what can our legislators be doing for us and making sure that it's what we know we need. And I think the answer to who knows what we need, Mark, when you say we don't know, I could be wrong. I think superintendents might have a pretty good idea of what their schools need. And that's where we're just trying to get the communication lines flowing in a reverse direction. So instead of waiting to see what are the bills that are coming our way that we have to deal with, and then maybe some of them work with what we have, instead having the state think about building bills that fill in the gaps for what we want. And so I'll stop there. I just stop there. But you've covered, I don't know, Val. Okay.
I'll add 2 quick statements to that, and then maybe if we're done, we can move on. One is that I learned a long time ago, early on as an educator, and especially when I entered into leadership roles in education, that for every ounce of accountability that I was asking of the people I supervised, I needed to provide an equal amount of support. And so to your point, if we want things to be different in the state and we want to hold schools and school districts accountable to certain outcomes, there has to be an equal measure of support along with that. And then related, we've heard this expression before, the system is yielding exactly the outcome it was designed to yield. So going back to what you said, Chair Kotke, is that if we want different outcomes, if we want education to look different, we need to think about changing the system. And it hasn't been changed in decades, maybe hundreds of years. So that is the work of schools and school districts, and we need our legislators to help us with that.
All right. Thanks for the presentation and the comments and the discussion, and for the patience of our people out there just waiting to be recognized and thinking, maybe we could have gone before that discussion, but we are happy to have a spotlight, a very special spotlight, plus family here tonight. Each month we will be taking time to recognize individuals, or what? Oh yeah, oh FGEA, oh yeah. Also special, our Forest Grove Education Association, equally as special. I forgot.
I'll make it easy, there's nothing to.
Really, are you just saying that? Okay. So sorry about that. Well, I usually make a couple mistakes, so that was a big one. But spotlight, I was looking over at Rogelio. Each month we will be taking time to recognize individuals or groups who have exhibited excellence in the district or in our community. Today we have an example of excellence in action. Superintendent Dr. Suzanne West will now present our February Spotlight Award.
Yeah, I am actually going to ask Rogelio to come on up here, and I'm going to step down here for this presentation. Yep, we're going to do this officially. So each year, the Oregon Association of Latino Administrators honors an exceptional educator with the Distinguished Latino Educator Award at its annual winter conference. This year, we are proud to celebrate our very own Rogelio Martinez, principal of Fernhill Elementary, as the recipient of this prestigious honor. The Distinguished Latino Educator Award recognizes a Latino educator who demonstrates outstanding leadership in educational administration and actively advances strategies that align with OALA's mission to support and elevate Latino students in communities across the district, institution, or state. In the short time that I've known Rogelio, it's only been 7 months, I've witnessed firsthand his deep commitment to his students, to his staff, and our district. He asks hard questions of himself, of the system, sometimes of his superintendent, not to challenge, but because he really cares. He's tireless in his advocacy for change. He pushes on systems. He uplifts and celebrates the diversity of our students. And I believe that Rogelio recognizes the inherent value of every child and every adult in our school system. Most importantly, Rogelio makes us better as educators, as a district, and as a community, because he believes in the power of public education and he holds high expectations for all students. Congratulations, Rogelio. Thank you for your dedication, leadership, and the impact you make every day at Fernhill Elementary and beyond. Thank you.
I want to show you all real quick, this is what we got from Moana.
Bring it over.
And I didn't break it yet. I haven't broken it.
Let's say bring it, hold it up for the picture. Yeah, great.
You ready, Val? One,
I had
two,
the same
three.
comment.
There you go.
Yeah?
I know, it's just.
Okay, one, two, three. Perfect. Thank you.
I was lucky enough to be neighbors with Rogelio and his family when Cruz was just little Cruz. And I really appreciated not only you as a friendly neighbor, but whenever I've been in the building, the energy that you bring, and you're out in the halls and interacting with the kids and the staff, and always positive. And that is really infectious, and so I really appreciated your commitment to always being on. I know as a principal, sometimes some days you maybe have to fake it till you make it, but I like that.
Thank you.
Your leadership.
Thank you. Can I say something?
Yes, of course.
And so, this has been great, and I was able to listen to some words that you shared at a previous school board, and just the stance that you have, and I think it's beautiful. One thing OWALA is such an amazing organization, and it's not just for Latinos, it's not just for administrators, it's for everybody, right? And so, one thing I would love is for you all to experience a conference. They have it every single year in the wintertime. They already have a date set for next year. It'd be great to see our school board there. One, I think it allows people to see us in numbers, and so they realize that we are the norm, we're not the exception. You know what I'm saying? And there's been a lot of times where people will say, Rogelio, you're so good for Latino students. And I say, I am, and I'm good for all students, right? So again, I think that's important to see that. And so going to OWALA really helps see that again, we are the global majority. People of color are a global majority, and oftentimes we're thought of as the minority, right? And so just changing that, not saying that you have it, but I'm saying changing that mindset, things like this help with that. And so especially with the district that is over 50% Latino, right? Going to workshops, going to conferences that focus on Latinos would be good for you all. And so, but thank you for the stance that you have chosen to take with this attack on, and I'm not gonna say, on diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Now, the DEIs, it's easy for people to say that, but when you start saying I'm against diversity, I'm against equity, I'm against inclusion, that really spells it out when people say that. So anyways, thank you for your stance here for Forest Grove. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Bethany, I'm going to backtrack again to ask if there's any public comment for tonight. No. Okay. All right.
Moving on.
Okay.
Can I make a motion that we approve tonight's consent
That'd be
agenda?
great.
Oh,
Should I just say, maybe I hand this down to you?
Second? I'll second it.
All in favor?
aye.
Okay. Presentations.
All right, Braylon.
It's finally here. It's finally here. Come on up. We're welcoming Braylon Marino. Her family is here with her tonight. She is part of the Forest Grove Future Farmers of America chapter president, and she's going to talk to us about the presentation she's giving and why she's giving it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Braylon, and I am part of the Forest Grove FFA chapter, and I'm presenting to you tonight on behalf of my state FFA degree. Just before I get started, I wanted to go over what FFA is and what a state degree is, just for a little bit of background. FFA is a national organization focused on agriculture and developing leadership skills in students through agricultural education. A state degree is the second highest degree that a member can earn within our organization and showcases the involvement of the student within our organization in a chapter, district, and state level. Moving into some of the chapter activities that I have participated in within the last 2.5 years. The first is that I've had the opportunity to be a chapter officer last year and this year. Last year I was elected our chapter vice president, and this year I was chapter president. Along with this leadership role, I've had the responsibility to host and facilitate all of our chapter meetings, planning with my officer team ahead of time what activities we want, what our agenda looks like, and helping to make the meeting run smoothly. I have also had the opportunity to partake in various fundraisers for our chapter, helping to boost our funds so that we can keep doing the fun activities that we are so fortunate to be able to participate in. Our two main fundraisers are tree recycling in the wintertime, which was just last month, and then plant sale in the spring. Last month, actually, I was able to have the opportunity to be interviewed by KGW News to promote our fundraiser and our organization as a whole, which was a great opportunity for both myself and our chapter. Something that we strive to do within our chapter is many community service opportunities. We have a goal set for this year to have one community service opportunity every single month, just trying to get connected within our community and get the name of FFA out there while serving others, which is something that's a part of our national goal. One of the big organizations that we are kind of partnered with is Rotary. We help out at a ton of their dinners and are super close with them and very fortunate to be so. I also have had the opportunity to help at various school events, whether it's our annual trick-or-treating event for kids in our community during Halloween, or the holiday event that was hosted about a year or 2 years ago. I love to kind of get connected with students in that way, and it helps to get the name out to younger kids so that they may want to join in the future. And I've also helped at various back-to-school night booths or recruiting opportunities, again, just to kind of get the name of FFA out there. Annually, we also help out at the Veterans Day Assembly, putting on boutonnieres as the veterans enter and welcoming them in for the day. And then finally, for community service, we had the opportunity to partner with our local Wilco last year and help them with their community day, helping them to pot plants for customers, just kind of getting, again, more community engagement. As a member within Forest Grove FFA chapter, we have a spring banquet to commemorate our members for all their awards and achievements throughout the year. But my freshman year, before I was an officer, that was my first banquet, and it was such a great experience, just highlighting the amazing work we did throughout the year. And I earned my Green Hand degree that year, which is the degree that certifies your first year within the FFA. Last year, as an officer, I was able to have a more in-depth role within that banquet, planning everything out ahead of time, what decorations we wanted, writing the manuscript, and even delivering the manuscript at that banquet. I earned my chapter degree there, as well as received Star Chapter Farmer for that year. And then this last year, I had the opportunity to show at the county fair for my first time, which I will talk about a little bit more in a couple of slides. And last month, I had the opportunity to go on the state legislative CCE tour to talk about our FFA program as well as our agricultural CCE classes. This was a great opportunity for me to network with other people throughout the state, like the legislators, and really get the name of FFA out there and inform them of what our agricultural classes look like, without which we wouldn't be able to have our FFA program. Moving into my district level activities, I have had the opportunity to be a district officer for the last year and then moving into this year. Last year I was the district reporter, and I am the newly elected 25-26 district vice president. My freshman year, before I was a district officer, I was a district delegate, following the methods of parliamentary procedure in order to elect and install our new district officers. Along with being a district officer, I facilitate and attend the Northwest District Leadership Camp, working with my officer team, which is people who are not from my school, they're from different schools around the area, to plan the camp, coming up with a theme and different activities, making sure that members are having a great time while also being able to connect and expand on their leadership skills. While there, I was able to attend various workshops to help enhance my own leadership skills and come up with ideas and things that I can implement into my own chapter. Another district level activity, which is one of the major ones throughout the year, is our district convention. This is where a lot of our competitions take place, some of which I have competed in. My freshman year, I competed in creed speaking, which I placed 3rd in at the district level, as well as the Green Hand Knowledge Quiz, which is just general information about the FFA in general, which I placed 1st in, moving on to state and also placing 1st. My sophomore year, I competed in sophomore prepared public speaking, which is a 4 to 6 minute prepared speech about an agricultural topic, and I placed second in that speech, moving on to sectionals. Or this month actually, at the beginning of it, I competed in advanced prepared public speaking, which is a 6 to 8 minute long speech about an agricultural topic. And then some more district competitions called CDEs. These are career development events, which are more agriculturally, like a specific agricultural field or topic centered. I have competed in agricultural sales, where I sell an agricultural product to a panel of judges. It was my first time competing this last November, and I placed second high individual. Last spring, I also competed in poultry evaluation and floriculture for the first time, placing second with my team in both of those events. And then moving on to my state level activities. The first and probably major one is state convention. This is an opportunity for members across the state to get together in Redmond, Oregon for about 4 days, just networking, attending the Career Expo, listening to keynote speeches, and working on our leadership skills. While there, I had the opportunity to sit on various proficiency committees, judging other members' supervised agricultural experiences. This didn't only help me to gain information about the interview process, but I also learned about the diverse agricultural opportunities that are offered to members across the state. The last 2 years that I have attended, I've also served as a state level delegate, again following the methods of parliamentary procedure to elect and install our new state officers. As a district officer, I've had the opportunity to attend Oregon District Officers Training, which is similar to our Northwest District Leadership Camp, but this is with members from across the state, giving me the opportunity to network and meet so many new people that I never would have been able to meet or talk to otherwise. And we attend various workshops throughout the 3 days that we're there, working on our individual leadership skills, but also coming up with ideas that we can implement within our district and within our own chapters. And then some state CDE events, which are the same events that I competed at the district level, just at a larger level with more people, were floriculture and poultry evaluation this past spring. Okay, and I've talked a little bit about these in the previous slides, but SAEs, or Supervised Agricultural Experiences. I currently have 2, and these are just projects that I do outside of school that connect me back to agriculture. My first and most major SAE is suburban seasonal backyard gardening. I don't come from a farm, I don't live on a farm, so I had to get a little bit creative with how I tied myself to agriculture, but I came up with having a small backyard garden. I've upgraded from 4 raised beds to 6 raised beds, and I try out different crops seasonally, kind of altering with and determining what factors make them grow best. I strive to have my plants produce the utmost and maximum produce that they can so that I can take that in for my family. I grow currently spring, summer, and fall crops. From what I harvest in my garden, I take it in to my house and process it into things that my family can use throughout the year, whether it's things like pickles, pasta sauce, or salsa during the summer months. These things are all things that go back into my family ultimately and help to serve my family and my household throughout the year. I also learned through this SAE that our area is lacking in pollinators. So I have learned the methods to raise both mason bees and leafcutter bees, implementing both of those into my operation so that I don't have to hand pollinate things myself, which is very convenient. Through this SAE, I have learned many new skills about plant production and food processing, which I can take with me into my future and possibly a career. My second SAE is a little bit newer to me, but something that I have fallen in love with, is raising a market turkey for the county fair to sell at the auction. This last year was my first year in doing so. And I had to work with him a lot to get him ready for showmanship, as well as myself. I had to gain so much knowledge about the poultry industry, but it ultimately paid off as I placed first in my showmanship class. I had to work with him immensely, spending hours a week just getting him ready, getting him comfortable, building that connection, and it was a definite learning curve as it was something I had never done before and was totally new with. But through this SAE, I was able to learn so much about animal systems and how to raise a market animal in general. Both of these combined, I've spent over 500 hours total and invested over $1,500. And then I would be amiss if I didn't end this presentation without acknowledging some of the reasons why I personally love FFA, and I know that other members can attest as well. The first is that I've been able to meet and connect with members from across the state of Oregon, people that I would never have had the chance to talk to, and just really make connections with them and learn about how diverse the agricultural industry is across the state. There's so many commodities that I was unaware that Oregon was actually producing, I guess. And it's just so incredible how many people are involved within this organization and how many different viewpoints there are. I've also gained essential public speaking skills that I know I can use later on in my career. As a freshman, I came in, I was totally terrified of public speaking, but now it's something that I actually truly enjoy. So I know I will cherish those skills forever. And I've also been able to network with many people and be exposed to agricultural businesses, colleges, and organizations that I can pursue after high school as things I want to do or go into, or just really things that kind of help me to emphasize that passion when I grow out of FFA. And then the last one, I've been able to partake in opportunities that I wouldn't have been able to if it weren't for FFA. Whether that's competing in a new competition and learning those skills, or traveling to Redmond to go to state convention, or meeting new members from across the state at leadership camps. These things are things that I'll be able to cherish forever, and I know that without FFA, I wouldn't have had those opportunities. So thank you all so much for your time. I truly appreciate it. Are there any questions I can answer?
I have questions.
I'll just start because she could take a while, so. Just doing like this, wow, Braylon, so impressed. I foresee a first place in the public speaking at the next state competition, for sure. We're really proud of you and happy for you, and I have questions too, but I don't really need to know what you were selling for the ag panel. You know, that's what one of my questions was. Christy will probably be asking it in the next few minutes, but congratulations.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
All right.
Okay. Just a couple. So one, I have so many. Most success, these are the quick ones, and then I've got a long one. Most successful crop from all of your produce that you grow.
Probably either tomatoes or zucchini, neither of which I like.
Tomatoes last year?
Yeah.
Last year was a rough year?
Last year was a rough year. We had a lot of pests last year, so it's one of our challenges.
Most nervous moment when you're at competitions, can you remember, was there a time when you were just like?
Probably my first speaking competition. I commended to Mrs. Shackelford. She made me do it. I was scared. I was bawling my eyes out. You can ask my parents. I didn't want to go. I almost quit, but I did it. And I stayed in front of the competition room and I was so nervous, but I walked in and it all went great. Even though I messed it up, it still went great. So it was worth it.
And then I guess my last one, well, I want to compliment your teacher and your parents. I guess I'm wondering how did this happen? Like, when did you get interested in FFA and say, this is it? And then it sounds like, you had great support.
I did.
Was that something you always were going to go into, or someone recruited you, or how did that start?
My mom made me go to the first meeting, actually. I was like, I don't want to go, but then a couple of my friends were going, and my mom's like, you should just go, try it out. And so I'm like, okay, and then I immediately got hooked. I don't even know what hooked me, but I just kept going back. I think it was probably the community and how encouraging everybody is within the organization. As soon as you join, it's like you join this immense family united by our Blue Jackets.
That's awesome. Well, that's moms and dads and teachers. That's what we talk about, getting kids out of their comfort zone so they can grow. But that's a phenomenal example. I mean, I was just really impressed by the whole presentation. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I have a question. Do you live in town, and do you have to get approval for bees at your home to have bees?
Yeah, I do live in town. I live up in Forest Hill Heights, and we did not have to get approval. Yeah, both the mason bees and leafcutter bees, they live in little tubes.
I know.
So you just need like a bee house. It's not like a huge bee box or anything like that. They're very easy to
What about the turkey? The neighbors are okay with the turkey?
No, we can't have a turkey because we live in an HOA.
Okay.
So we have a program at the school where we are able to have market turkeys there.
Oh, okay. I was wondering that, but I was like, well, maybe they got neighbor approval.
Yeah.
For the turkey.
I forgot last one. What are your future aspirations? Is there anything you're thinking about?
I don't have a solid plan as of yet, but I know that I want to pursue something in the animal science field.
Okay. Awesome. All right, thank you so much.
Well,
Thank
congrats,
you
Braylon.
for writing through all of it.
I'm very impressed. She's a winner.
Wow. I feel like we should get a
I'm sure of it.
You want a picture? Yeah. The parents and the teachers, Corey. Yeah. No, just a picture of you guys. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes. Yeah, here. Oh.
Zoom in as much as I can there. And not cut Mark off, okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you. All right, second presentation tonight is about graduation rates.
You guys also don't have to take,
Yeah, you can,
you know, if you don't, you can't.
because there's gonna be more, and it's gonna be like.
I just didn't want you to feel like you had to.
Okay, just being polite, thank you. Oh, thank you.
All right, thank you. I have a quick presentation on graduation rates. These data are already public, but I want to orient us to just a few things within Forest Grove data specifically. So I have a few graphs and slides to show you. Graduation is reported in two different categories, 4-year graduation and then 5-year completer. You should be familiar with the fact that every school district in the state of Oregon co-created longitudinal performance growth targets with the Department of Education about 3 years ago, the purpose of which is to help encourage improvement in the 5 common metrics the state evaluates us in. What you see here are 4-year graduation rates, and this is the table in the graph that we use to evaluate our progress in this particular longitudinal performance growth target. You'll see, just to orient you to this one, that the top line is our stretch goal, where we would like to be at the conclusion of this particular cycle, which ends in 29-30. The blue line is our baseline goal, and then the green line is what's known as a gap closing goal. And the gap closing goal is what we strive for in order to see student focal groups close that achievement gap and reach at least the baseline. This entire program related to longitudinal performance growth targets is intended to take at least 10 years to realize the level of improvement that the state is looking for. We'll be bringing some more information to the board related to the integrated plan and longitudinal performance growth targets here soon. It's an annual approval process, so we'll be back in just a couple months with updated goals and more information. But for right here, what I want to point out is that for us as a district, we saw quite a bit of improvement in our 4-year graduation rate at Forest Grove High School for the 23-24 school year. For the 23-24 school year, Forest Grove High School achieved an 84% graduation rate, which was pretty good. For the district, you'll see it's at 82.9. The reason for that is this is the first year, 23-24, where we recorded Calc as an independent high school. So instead of the students at Calc being rolled up into that overall Forest Grove High School number, which they had been in previous years, those students are now reported separately, which means the 2 high schools are averaged. And that is the reason why we have a different score there for this year. So it establishes a new baseline for us. But in terms of our longitudinal performance growth targets, we track them together. We don't separate them out. This is overall district performance. And this is the same graph, but it's for 5-year graduation for our completers. And you can see that for that red line there, we are making progress here as well. So our high schools are doing a great job of helping students achieve graduation, either in 4 years or in 5 years. They've seen tremendous improvement over the last couple of years. So congratulations to all of our high school staff for that effort. The other thing that I want to point out here, these graphs look a little bit different. They're produced for us by the consortium, the Oregon Data Suite. And these are projection lines. So these projection lines show us over a period of time, what can we expect given our past data and our current data in terms of overall performance. And what I want to point out here is that we do expect, given the recent improvement in graduation, to continue. If that trend continues, we will eventually reach 88, 89, 90% graduation as a district. It's going to take a few more years, but that's the path we're on. One of the student groups that we pay particular attention to is our students who are emerging bilingual students. So these are English learners. This is an important group for us to pay attention to in our district. Again, 60% of our student body is Latino. We educate many of our students in Spanish because that is the language spoken in the home of their heritage language. And what you can see here in the blue line is that our students who are emerging bilingual are increasing their graduation rates at rates based on this trend line even greater than what we see in the overall student body. So that is a student focal group where we are starting to close gaps, and we're really excited to see that in our graduation data. With our dropout rates, you can see similar trends. The dropout rate for all students is interesting. It's a wavy line. So these are regression lines. If anybody pays attention to statistics or isn't interested in that, regression lines typically are straight, but our data are wavy because if you look at those individual data points, they're all over the place, which means there's been a lot of variance in our dropout rates over the last few years, and that's what leads to that wavy line there. But if you look at the blue line again on the right, and these are again our emerging bilingual students, you can see that dropout rates are continuing to decline, and that's good. We have more students who are emerging bilingual graduating than ever, and that's exciting for us to see. It means they're not dropping out. And that's it for my very brief presentation. Do you have any questions about our graduation or dropout rates?
Seeing none, thank you. And we are going to move on to action items. Number 1, NAM's Classroom Technology Upgrade Contractor. Enrique, welcome.
The action item before you tonight is for the approval of the contractor to install the new AV equipment at Neil Armstrong Middle School as part of the broader bond project to upgrade all the old equipment across the district that is over 10 years old. In the last bond, you already approved actually the purchase of the physical equipment. This is the approval of the contractor. So the district went through an RFP process and selected Portland Electrical Construction, PECI, as the contractor after the RFP process. So the action item for you tonight is to approve PECI as the contractor to install the project at NAMS. And the way that we're doing this is we're doing it kind of by school. So this is the approval tonight just for the Neil Armstrong project.
Questions? Do I have a motion to approve PECI as a classroom technology upgrade contractor and the first project of installing new classroom audio video equipment at Neil Armstrong Middle School for $132,263 utilizing bond funds?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Next up is John Abel. Hi, John. Welcome.
Hi.
Sorry.
No problem.
Okay, the second item for you tonight is for architectural services for Fern Hill Elementary School. For Malem Architects, they were previously selected through an RFP process. What this project is a 4-classroom addition on the east side of Fern Hill Elementary School. Current plan is to have 1 pre-K classroom and 3 standard classrooms. And so we, if there's any questions, let me know, but they're eager to get going and plan to start construction this summer.
Questions?
I can make the motion. I move that the board approves the bond procurement for Malem for the Fern Hill Elementary School classroom expansion and PK renovation project at $921,685.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next item we have is for the construction contract at Echo Shaw Elementary School. We took this one out to bid and got 4 bids. Inline construction was the low bid, and these were our pre-qualified general contractors that we put that list together also through an RFP process. So we're confident with all the firms we've pre-selected. We've worked with Inline before, and so the work there includes seismic, replacing most all the siding on the building, replacing the windows, and then some interior repairs and deferred maintenance. So let me know if you have any questions.
John, you say we've worked with Inline before as a district or just you guys?
Trying to remember, I've worked with them a number of times in Hillsborough.
Okay.
Um,
I just don't remember seeing them. Usually
Yeah, I
it's a
don't
side
know.
star, but I see that's like $100,000 difference. So.
Yeah, we, Cornerstone's worked with them a number of times, worked with them, they're based in Aloha.
Thanks, that was gonna be my next question.
Yeah, they're pretty much local, and have done a lot of work with Hillsborough School District, so I'm confident with them.
Thank you. I can make a motion. I move that the board awards Echo Shaw Elementary School construction project to Inline Commercial Construction for $2,477,151.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Here you go, John.
Northwest Regional Local Service Plan is back with Dr. West.
Yes, thank you. Back for action.
For action.
So last board meeting was the first read. As a reminder, regional superintendents reviewed the plan and approved it in November. The Northwest Regional ESD Board of Directors has also approved this plan. Included in the packet for review was the service plan slide deck, the proposed resolution for this service plan, and then the timeline. So we are bringing it back for action tonight.
Any questions? Do I have a motion to approve the 2025-26 local service plan as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
First read.
First read. All right, first read.
Just briefly, in your board packet for review and for action when we come back together next time is the proposed transfer timeline and number of recommended open slots for the 25-26 school year. We are required by statute to have a window, a period of time at which students may apply for entry into our district and leave our district without restrictions. So it is these timelines and open slots that we are bringing to the board for approval in a few weeks here so that we can begin that process.
Any questions about that? All right, thank you. And I just want to note for the record that it says 7:10, it says 7:15 adjourn, despite my best attempts to run on things too. But I think this is going to be
Okay,
it.
let's give Christy a shout out for 10 minutes early.
Just saying, we're adjourning at 6:57.
Yeah, Braylon, come back. She has more questions for us.